now.
Look, nobody wants to see Delphi grow more than me and you guys. But, you know, there's certain red flags when somebody wants to come and live in Delphi and they say, well, what's my water bill gonna be? Do I wanna be part of this community? You know, based on, you know, me as a homeowner, I'm concerned that the higher water bill is gonna decrease my property value because it's gonna make my property less appealing. So, I mean, those are the anxieties that I think a lot of your typical homeowners who buy property for investment purposes are looking for. So those are just things to consider.
Well, have anybody ever asked them what's the water rate, I mean, before they decide to move into a community?
I did when I came
I
here. Both my
certainly-
wife and I, we're very concerned about what we pay for public utilities and having the street sweeper come in and what do I gotta pay for my garbage, which never used to be anything, and the street sweeper used to come every other week. Now we pay for garbage and don't see the street sweeper at all.
Dick, we used to own a house in Battleground. That was our first house. And we saw the water rate coming in Battleground. We moved. That was in 1988.
I
I'm
don't,
not saying it's not a factor, I'm just questioning if it's a really critical factor in terms of economic growth. Is that gonna stop people from moving to Delphi?
Anybody-
Or property tax?
anybody who's reasonably economically savvy, who worries about investments, who worries about their retirement, who worries about buying a piece of property and expecting a return on it, yes, we consider those
What would
kind
your
of things.
choices be? I mean, would you shop communities based on their water rate?
Well, it's not.
Those are
just-
It's cost of-
considerations.
It's cost of living.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
And people
Well,
do look at
that's
cost of
only
living.
one part of it.
Right.
Certainly, our cost of living is very low compared to, say, Lafayette.
Do you know you have almost the highest tax rate in the state for all cities and towns? You're up at the 25th percentile.
Yeah, but that's kind of a misnomer if you have property tax caps.
Well,
So
but still,
for an owner-occupied property, you're still at 1%.
but your rate is still up there. I mean, And-
But for the
and-
rate to be up there is one thing, but you're actually getting taxed at 1%.
you can spend it that way if you want to, but that's, it doesn't look good, it doesn't sound good, and it's a concern.
Well, I think obviously one of the things we have to look at is the future. Say, what will our future be if we don't have the ability to provide Wally with good clean water and sewage and all those kind of things? We can't do that. What will that do to our economic development?
hey, I'm
What
all
does
for,
it
I'm
do
all
to
for
Florida?
living next door to somebody who's got a lot of money in their bank account. Don't misunderstand me, and if that's your guy's goal, I think you're going about it the wrong way. High water bills are not the way to attract people with a lot of money into your city. So, just another thing to consider. I understand and appreciate the need to have clean water and good roads and sewers that, you know, do what they're supposed to do. But just bear in mind, I'm concerned, and I think that anybody else cares enough
I
about their
think we all
financial.
live in Delphi. I mean, we
Anybody-
have to pay
No,
that rate.
I mean,
too.
Yeah.
it's a balancing test, is what it is. I mean, we've got items that require maintenance that if we don't do them soon, they're gonna be even more costly in the future. We've got 2 wells that could run dry in the next 1 to 5 years, that if we don't have something to supplement them, we're not generating the capacity that we need. We have problems running water up the South Hill for over a decade, Craig.
Oh, ever since I've been here.
So we've got problems that we need to address that.
I've said enough. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I appreciate it.
I think you're doing a good job.
I don't think anybody is going to suggest not to solve problems. Let's just make sure we solve them the right way for the benefit of the whole community, not just the 15% that, you know, gets represented more than the rest of us. I mean, let's make sure we solve it for everybody in a decent, timely, economic way, and for what's good and for the growth of the city.
That's our
That's
goal.
what we're striving to do.
But you gotta remember, I was here, you was here, Mr. Dyer was mayor, we've been dealing with this thing for 20 years, and we've spent millions of dollars, but with no solution.
Permanent solution.
Yeah, no permanent solution.
Well, we can re-examine that, but it won't solve any problems. We need to solve the problems that we have now.
We need to take time to look at things and make sure we're doing
I
the right moves.
agree. I think we should do that. But we can't look at it forever. We have to act at some point. We have to have a plan. We have to say, these are our priorities. Get A, B, C, D done.
But to revisit what you just said a few sentences ago about having an economic plan to build infrastructure, I agree with that, but to a point, you know, at what point, what's the breakoff point that kills the goose that lays the golden egg? That you have no projection of population coming to Delphi. In fact, I hear it's decreasing. So when you have
You know where
decrease,
that
and
point
I don't
is?
know that for sure, I'm just going
We
on what
don't know
people
that
are
point
saying,
either.
so. I mean, these are just things that should be talked about and considered, so.
I agree. I think we should talk about
You don't know
it.
what? What did you say you didn't know?
I didn't know what that breaking point was that he said.
Oh.
I think we'll probably find out in the
Nobody will come or
near
everybody will
future.
come. And what investments we need to make, and again, these are investments in the future, which many of us in this room may not ever live to appreciate what somebody did 10, 15, 20 years before. Like Jeff said, if some of those things had been addressed 20 years ago, we may not be in the same situation we're in. We are.
That's the problem now. You look at the money that's been spent in the water department the last 4 years, like combing down through. There's been a ton of money spent on things that should have been fixed 10, 15 years ago.
But to take a cynical point on what you just said, I'm busting my butt and putting myself in an early grave trying to afford all my overhead expenses like water. So,
You can shut it off. I mean, yeah, well.
no, that's a negative approach
I-
to
that
take.
won't work.
I'm just trying to
That's
give you
not the
guys food
official
for thought to let
position
you know
of the
how a
city of
taxpayer
Delphi.
feels.
No, we want to
You know,
provide them.
I have no
quality
business or
food.
economic stake in this town other than my property. And like I said, I want to see my return on my property should I decide to move.
I agree.
So, well, thank you.
We need everybody to
Shut
see
up.
Anytime, Wally, although I've got to be in a meeting at 7 in Buffalo, so. If there's no further public comment, Mr. Myers.
As the water superintendent, would I be able to get a copy of this proposal?
Yes, I'd be more than happy. I've already made notes on it, but,
All right, that's fine, thank you.
thanks. Any further public comment?
I move for adjournment.
I second.
I do too.
All those in favor?
Aye.
6:12.
Thank you for coming.
Oh, you're welcome.
Make him a copy and make one.
I got you.